Hi everybody, my name is Christopher Fodnelli, and this is the second video of our Machinery Tools extension series. In this video, we're going to be going over the bearings in the Machinery Tools extension, as well as going over the parameters when we're building the model. So let's get started. Let's just first make sure we have the Machinery Tools enabled. So we're going to go to File, Extension Manager, and we are going to enable Machinery Tools. And as we can see in the description, it's going to load a folder in the Entity Browser for the MotionView client. And if you hit View Documentation, it will navigate you to Altair's online help, where you can find more information regarding the Machinery Tools extension package. Let's enable the Machinery Tools and exit out the Extension Manager. Now if we go to the Entity Browser, we can see a folder called Machinery Tools, and we can see three different folders: Bearings, Examples, and Gears. Going into the Examples folder, we can see the Reduction Gearbox and a Wind Turbine Gearbox. Going to the Bearings folder, these are the bearings that we have to offer. First, we'll start with the ball bearings. We have the Angular ball bearing and the Deep Groove ball bearing. Following that, we have two different types of journal bearings, the aligned and misaligned, and three different types of rolling bearings: cylindrical, spherical, and tapered. In this example, we'll be creating two spherical, two deep groove, and four taper bearings. Going through the model, we can see that there are already bodies, forces, joints, markers, and motions created. For the markers, these will be used to define the positioning of all of our bearings and gears. If we run the model as is and view the animation, we would notice that all the bodies except for the housing component would fall through space. This is because there are no connections between the shafts and the housing unit. Now let's create some bearings to connect the housing and the shafts together. Going to the Entity Browser, let's first start off with our Deep Groove bearings. So we select the Deep Groove bearings, and with the guide bar, we can see that we need to connect two bodies together. So we're going to do the input shaft and the housing. We're going to find the reference marker, so the position it's going to be placed in, and for the output marker to define results, we're going to click in space to use the global frame marker. Once we select create, a pop-up is going to define some more constraints for us, and we're going to fill that in using the table shown on the screen. In addition to the table, it's going to show us more information as well as what bodies and markers they are constrained to. Once we're finished editing, we can select the green check mark to finish editing, and we can immediately go and create our second bearing. Instead of hitting create, if we select the green checkbox, it's going to create the bearing with default values. And if we go to the entity editor, we can view all the properties and edit them here. As we edit the properties, we can see that the bearing graphics are automatically updating. You might notice that there are a few extra properties that we can define in geometry options. These values are not always provided, and so we have defined some equations to represent these values. And for a few other parameters, we have defined them based off of average values recorded in documentation. Let's quickly check the properties of the two bearings just to make sure they're the same. They look like they are. So now if we scroll further down in the entity editor, we can see there's a damping ratio, rotational friction. We can design the friction, change the lubrication method if needed. We can have detailed graphics in the H3D. We can also define rollers force graphics in H3D. I'm going to quickly toggle that for both bearings. We can also define our own user material, so we can find the density, Young's modulus, and Poisson ratio. What I'm going to do right now is change the labels of the ball bearings for Deep Groove. Once I've done that, I'm going to start creating the next bearings, which are going to be the tapered roller bearings. I'm going to be creating 4 of them, and I'll have the table on the screen defining all the properties used. With the new bearings created, I'm going to quickly rename them. After that, I'm going to look over the properties, and you can see that there will be a few extra parameters defined in the geometry, just like the previous bearings. These are defined by equations to give a decent representation of these parameters. If you are provided with these values, feel free to update it. I'm going to enable the roller force graphics for the last 4 bearings I just created. Once that is done, I am going to go to the entity browser and create the last 2 bearings, which are the spherical bearings. With the last 2 bearings completed, I'm going to quickly go to the entity editor and rename them. Once that is done, I'm going to enable the roller force graphics in H3D, and I'm going to quickly compare both bearings, make sure they're all correct. Once I've done that, I'm going to save the model. Now I'm just going to verify the connections were properly done, so I'm going to run the model. Once the model is done solving, I'm going to animate the results. Going over the animation, I can see that my bearings are properly constrained. We will not be able to see any of the force graphics because there is no large excitation forces acting upon them. We will see more of that in our next video when we add the gears. That is all for now. Thank you and have a good day.